Have you ever glanced at the clock, perhaps in the hurry of your morning routine or in the quiet of deep night, and noticed the same pattern staring back at you? It's as though time itself is pausing for a moment, handing you a gentle tap on the shoulder, as if to say, "Wake up." Something is happening here. There's a sacred poetry in that repetition, a soft whisper from the universe reminding you that you are not separate from the flow of meaning that courses through all things. These moments, these synchronistic encounters, carry a vibration that resonates with the very core of your being, hinting at a tapestry of purpose and connection that you are invited to step into. Think for a moment about the exquisite perfection of a spider's web glistening with morning dew. Each droplet reflects light in a way that seems almost premeditated, forming patterns that delight the eye. Yet, behind that beauty lies an intricate design born of instinct and necessity. Similarly, when you encounter, it's as though the cosmos is reflecting your inner readiness, a chance for you to appreciate the design at work in your life. You may brush it off as coincidence, but each appearance is a deliberate pause point, an echo that reminds you there is something more to see beneath the surface of ordinary events. I want you to consider the story of a young woman who kept seeing 11:11 during a season of deep questioning and uncertainty. She was at a crossroads, wondering whether to stay in a job that paid the bills but left her soul hungry, or to pursue a passion that felt precarious but alive. Each time the clock struck that familiar alignment, her heart would race, and a quiet voice inside would ask, "What if you dared to follow the whisper in your soul?" At first she resisted, chalking it up to her watch running fast or her mind playing tricks. But as the instances multiplied, she recognized a pattern, not a pattern in the clock, but a pattern in her own awakening. Eventually she embraced the invitation, took the leap into her passion, and discovered doors opening in places she had never dreamed of. There is something profoundly human about seeking reassurance when we stand at the threshold of change. Synchronicities like 11 serve as cosmic nods, affirming that we are not alone in our leap of faith. They are the universe's way of winking at us, saying, "I see your longing. I've heard your unspoken prayers. Proceed with courage." And courage, beloved, is not the absence of fear, but the conviction that something far greater than fear beckons us forward. Consider the patterns in nature, the pull of the tides, the cycle of the seasons, the celestial dance of the planets. Each operates according to rhythms that, while unseen, are no less real. In the same fashion, our lives are woven into a larger rhythm of purpose and possibility. When you notice 11:11, you are tuning into that rhythm, even if only for a fleeting heartbeat. It's an acknowledgement that beyond the mechanics of seconds and minutes, there is melody and meaning waiting for your participation. You might ask, but isn't it simply my mind noticing a familiar shape? And it's true. Our reticular activating system trains us to notice what we consider important. Yet, that in itself is part of the sacred design. The mind is both the lens through which we view reality, a mirror reflecting the state of our spirit. If you have captivated your heart's attention on transformation, on awakening, if you have whispered a prayer for guidance, then your inner eye is destined to catch the subtle cues strewn across your path. Let me draw your attention to a moment of pure synchronicity that happened to me personally, one of those times when the ordinary became the extraordinary in a single breath. I was traveling between cities, my heart heavy with doubt about the message I was carrying to a new audience. As I sat in a small cafe, sipping lukewarm tea, I glanced up at the wall clock, 11:11. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, letting a sense of peace wash over me. In that instant, I felt as though an unseen choir had burst into song, affirming that the words I would speak were needed, that they would carry a light into places of darkness. Later that evening, as I walked onto the stage, I carried that still, small voice within me, confident that I was exactly where I needed to be. These moments are not the exclusive domain of mystics or visionaries. They are the birthright of every soul willing to listen. You may find yourself noticing 11:11 on your phone, your wristwatch, the dashboard of your car, or even on a receipt from the grocery store. Each instance is a bookmark in your story, a signal that the next chapter is about to begin. The magic lies in your response. Will you pause long enough to inhale the whisper, to acknowledge that something beyond the seen world is at play? And how, you may wonder, do we cultivate the capacity to recognize and honor these synchronicities? It begins with presence, practicing the art of being fully awake to the moments of your life. You might start with a simple ritual. When you notice 11:11, Close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and silently ask, what am I being shown? Then remain still, even if just for a few seconds. Notice the thoughts that arise, the subtle stirrings in your body, the gentle guide you a next step. In time, you will discover that these pauses become portals, gateways to clarity and inspiration that were always waiting for your attention. As you weave this practice into your everyday life, you begin to see that synchronicity is not merely a random act of cosmic whimsy, but a purposeful invitation to co-create with the divine tapestry of existence. You become a co-author of your own destiny, attuned to the signs and symbols that the universe graciously offers. And in that dance, you realize that every act of noticing is an act of alignment, bringing you closer to the unfolding of your highest self. So the next time you catch that fleeting glance 1111, consider it a sacred handshake, a promise that you are supported by the unseen forces of love and intelligence that pervade all creation. Let it remind you that you are never lost, even when the path seems uncertain, for the universe is always sending you breadcrumbs of guidance. All you need do is pause, listen, and follow where they lead. Let the wonder of that simple moment carry you forward with faith and expectation, knowing that life's greatest mysteries often emerge in the smallest of signs. And as you lean into the patterns that speak to your soul, may you discover, with each breath, that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Have you ever found yourself jolted out of autopilot by the simple alignment of 4 tiny digits, 11 on your clock? It's as though the universe has pressed pause on the ordinary hum of life and tapped you gently on the shoulder, inviting you to take a breath, to step into stillness, and to awaken to something deeper. In the rush of our days, it's so easy to move from task to task without noticing the sacred undercurrent that weaves through each moment. Yet here, in this fleeting flash of time, lies an open door, a spiritual wake-up call that beckons you to bring your consciousness fully into the present. Imagine a world where every blink of the eye is witnessed with curiosity, every heartbeat acknowledged with gratitude, and every breath honored as a holy gift. That world might seem distant or even fanciful when life churns at top speed, but 1111 offers you a doorway back to this awareness. It is a universal tap on the wrist, reminding you that you are an active participant in a living, breathing cosmos, not merely a spectator bound by schedules and expectations. When you pause at 1111, even for a moment, you reclaim the gift of presence, the simple yet profound act of being alive right where you are. Let me share a story of a gentleman who, for years, shrugged off these glances at 1111 as nothing more than quirk of habit, an old digital watch slightly fast, or the subconscious imprint of a TV show's timestamp. And yet, in seasons of deep fatigue and emotional weariness, he began to sense that those 4 digits carried a deeper meaning. One sleepless night, after wrestling with questions about his purpose, he noticed 1111 blinking on the clock. Instead of reaching for his phone or scrolling through social media to distract himself, he closed his eyes and whispered, "Show me where I belong." In that silence, he heard a gentle assurance, not with words but with a feeling, "You are enough, and you are on the right path." From that moment on, whenever 1111 appeared, he treated it as a sacred invitation to realign his mind, his heart, and his spirit. This practice of pausing isn't complicated. You don't need a meditation cushion or a retreat center. All you need is the willingness to press stop in the whirlwind of your day. When you see 1111, take a conscious breath, place your hand over your heart, and allow yourself to become aware of your inner landscape. Notice any tension in your shoulders, any racing thoughts, any pangs of hope or worry. Invite in a sense of spaciousness. Remind yourself that beyond the noise, the endless to-do lists, the social obligations, the restless mind, there is a sanctuary of peace within you, waiting to be recognized. That place of presence is the doorway to your intuition, to your creative spark, and to your deeper calling. There's a wisdom tradition that speaks of the thin place, a realm where the veil between the physical and the spiritual grows transparent. In those moments, heaven and earth touch, and the mundane is suffused with meaning. 1111 can serve as a doorway into your own thin place. It's not that time itself transforms, rather your perception shifts. You step off the treadmill of external demands and into the spacious freedom of divine invitation. You remember that you are not defined by your achievements or your failures, but by the infinite love that pulses through all existence. Perhaps you worry that using 1111 in this way borders on superstition, that you're attributing mystical significance to a mundane clock. But consider this. Every time you choose to pause and breathe, you are rewiring the circuitry of your mind. You are inviting calm into the neurons that habitually fire with stress. You are training your body to release cortisol and welcome oxytocin instead. Whether or not you believe in angels or spirits, the science of presence is undeniable. When you bring awareness into your body, you transform your physiology and open channels for insight, creativity, and healing. I recall a young artist I once met who, in the throes of creative block, felt disconnected from her own gift. Her paints sat untouched, her studio lights dim. One evening, she looked up to see 1111 glowing on her alarm clock. Instead of reaching for her phone, she took 15 deep, intentional breaths, each one accompanied by a silent phrase, "I am here. I am open. I am creative." When she finally picked up her brush, she discovered colors and forms that surprised even her. It was as if the simple act of presence invited a river of inspiration to flow once more. She told me later that 1111 had become her muse, a gentle guardian guiding her back to her soul's expression. Every time you treat 1111 as a spiritual wake-up call, you strengthen a sacred muscle. You learn to notice the whispers beneath the roar, to hear the unseen melodies beneath the clamor of daily life. You cultivate a responsive heart, one that can pivot from stress to stillness, from anxiety to aliveness, from distraction to devotion. In those moments of presence, you become aware that your life is not merely a series of tasks to complete, but a living prayer, a dance of consciousness unfolding across the stage of time. And there's something beautiful that happens when you share this practice with others. Imagine a friend texting you, 1111 just popped up coffee break. Suddenly, a spontaneous pause welcomes both of you into a shared field of calm. Conversations deepen, laughter becomes richer, and hearts connect on a level that transcends small talk. In this way, 1111 can weave a tapestry of community, linking souls through the simple acknowledgement of presence. You become beacons of light for one another, reflecting back the sacred invitation to awaken each time the clock aligns. So the next time the digits align, resist the urge to let the moment slip by. Instead, let it be your cue to step into the sanctuary of your own being. Close your eyes, feel your breath. Listen to the whisper in your heart. Ask silently, what do I need right now? Be open to whatever arises: comfort, courage, clarity, or compassion. And then, as you let your eyes open to the world again, carry that heightened awareness forward into the rest of your day. Let it color your choices with intention, your words with kindness, and your actions with purpose. For in the end, living consciously is the greatest gift you can offer to yourself, to those you love, and to the world at large. And it all begins with that tiny pause, that sacred inhale, that moment when you glimpse 1111. Remember that life is a miracle unfolding, here and now. May you answer the call with an open heart. There is a kind of alchemy hidden in the simplest of numbers, and when you pause to consider 1111, you encounter the shimmering power of the master number 11 doubled. The idea of a master number may sound esoteric at first, a label reserved for mystics and scholars of sacred mathematics, but its essence is profoundly democratic. It pulses in the heartbeat of your intuition, it hums in the melody of your deepest longings, and it glimmers in the doorway of every possibility you dare to imagine. 11, in numerology, is viewed as a bridge between the finite and the infinite, a conduit through which divine insight and earthly experience commune. When that number appears twice, 1111, you are standing at a threshold, invited to walk across into a realm where your inner vision holds more sway than any external circumstance. Think of 11 as the twin pillars of a magnificent gateway. One pillar represents your mortal self, your body, your mind, the social role you play. The other represents your immortal self, your soul, your intuition, your spark of light born from the source of all things. Alone, each pillar is strong, but standing together they frame an invitation to step beyond the limitations of everyday thought and to access the vast reservoir of inspiration waiting for you within. 1111 points you toward balance between doing and being, between action and surrender, between planning and allowing. And when those pillars double 1111, the invitation is not only reinforced, it is magnified. It is as if the universe presses its ear to your heart and says, "Listen closely, beloved. A new story is ready to be written." I remember well the first time I truly recognized this power. I was preparing for a gathering in a distant city, and my notes felt dry, my words hollow. In the quiet before stepping onto the platform, my watch caught my eye, 1111. Instinctively, I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, allowing the echo of that number to resonate through my being. I asked silently, "Show me the message that will awaken hearts tonight." And in that stillness, an image formed, not in my mind's eye, but in my spirit, a vision of compassion, a word of hope that I could hardly believe was mine to speak. When I opened my eyes, the words flowed like living water, carrying a vitality and warmth that surprised even me. It was as though 1111 had unlocked a hidden door inside, revealing the treasure of intuition that had been waiting all along. The numerological significance of 11 is woven into the very fabric of the human story. Many spiritual traditions recognize it as a master number, of vibration charged with heightened potential. In Tarot, the 11th card is justice, reminding us that truth and balance are inseparable. In Kabbalah, the 11th path on the tree of life is that of harmony and revelation. Even in the ancient world, the ancients marveled at the properties of 11, assigning it to divine messengers and cosmic thresholds. Yet here's the miracle. That same energy you read about in dusty tomes, or hear described by scholars, is alive inside you. You carry the wisdom of 11 in your breath, in your heartbeat, in the creative impulse that surges through your veins when you are moved by beauty or seized by compassion. Now, when you see 1111, notice how it feels in your body. Perhaps your heart quickens, or a gentle warmth spreads through your chest. Maybe a question surfaces, silent yet insistent. What would it look like to live this moment as a portal? Because that is what 1111 invites, to treat each present moment as a doorway to higher awareness. It asks you not to dismiss the whisper of your intuition, but to honor it. It reminds you that within you lies a wisdom that transcends logic and calculation, a spark of divinity that can guide you in ways no algorithm ever could. And what sweeter or grander power could there be than the power to co-create your life? When you pause at 1111 and set an intention, "May I speak my truth with love. May I choose courage over comfort. May I see the unity behind all diversity," you are aligning your personal will with the greater will that underlies creation. You become a channel for something vast and luminous. You discover that your simplest choices, when made from that place of alignment, ripple outward in concentric circles of blessing. There was a young teacher I once met who struggled to find her voice. She adored her students but doubted whether she could truly inspire them. Every morning on her way to school, she passed the same digital clock in the cafeteria hall, an old relic that often blinked 1111. One day she decided to make it her ritual. At that precise moment, she would pause at her classroom door, breathe in the promise of 11's energy, and whisper, "Let my words lift. Let my presence heal." Over time, she noticed that her lessons became more vibrant, her students more engaged. She realized that 1111 was not a superstition, but a spark, an ignition point for her own faith in her calling. This is the magic of numerology when lived rather than merely studied. It becomes a living language between you and the cosmos, a code that you speak without thought, while the universe responds with subtle signs and invitations. You learn to recognize that every repetition, every pattern, is an echo of your inner state. When you align your thoughts with love, your actions with service, and your heart with gratitude, you trigger the resonance of 11 doubling upon itself, inviting miracles of insight, compassion, and synchronicity. Yet, this power is not meant to inflate the ego or to construct a spiritual hierarchy. On the contrary, 11's greatest teaching is humility, recognizing that you are both the seeker and the sought, both the knower and the known. It teaches that true mastery comes not from accumulating knowledge, but from embodying wisdom. It reminds you that every time you step through the portal of 1111, you return with a gift of presence, a gift of clarity, a gift of expanded love that you can share with the world. So I invite you now, in this moment, to take a breath and imagine the next time you see 1111. Will you dismiss it as a quirky habit, or will you lean in and ask, what does my soul wish to reveal? Will you honor that master number as a sacred agreement between your human heart and the beating heart of the universe? Will you let its resonance guide your thoughts, color your intentions, and illuminate the path forward? For in the sweet tension of those twin 11s, you meet yourself anew. You meet possibility. You meet grace. And you remember that the universe is not a distant, indifferent machine, but a living tapestry that pulses with your own creative essence. May you answer the call with an open heart. When the clock shifts to 11:11, it's more than just a moment to marvel at. It's an invitation to harness the unseen power of your own mind. You see, our thoughts are like seeds planted in the soil of our consciousness, and our intentions are the sunlight and water that help them grow. Every time you notice 11:11, you have a rare chance to tend your inner garden, to choose carefully which seeds you wish to see sprout into reality. In that fleeting alignment of numbers, you can pause, draw a steady breath, and intentionally plant a thought that carries the energy of your deepest longing. I once spoke with a businesswoman who had built a thriving company but felt a void at her core. She was successful on paper, yet her spirit whispered for something more meaningful. Each day she would glance at her computer's clock, always around 11:11, and roll her eyes, thinking it was just habit. One morning, though, she decided to treat that moment differently. As the digits blinked before her, she closed her eyes, placed her hand on her heart, and quietly affirmed, "May my work serve the greater good." In that instant, something shifted. Ideas began to flow, collaborations that lifted communities, partnerships that honored creativity, initiatives that wove social impact into her profit margins. She realized that when she aligned her thoughts with intention at 11:11, she was opening a channel for inspired action. This practice is not about magic or wishful thinking. It's about aligning your inner world with your outer world so that your actions spring from clarity rather than confusion. You see, the act of intention is a conversation between your conscious mind and the vast intelligence that underlies all things. When you make that conversation a ritual at 11:11, you're not just daydreaming, you're setting a direction for your energy to flow. You're saying, "This is where my focus lies. This is what matters most." And the universe, ever responsive, begins to reflect that focus back to you in the form of opportunities, insights, and synchronicities. Think of your mind as a lighthouse perched on the edge of possibility. When the beam of intention shines steadily, it cuts through the fog of distraction and fear, guiding you toward the harbor of your desires. But if that beam wavers, flickers, or points in too many directions, the signal becomes weak, and the ship of your purpose drifts off course. That's why the simple ritual of pausing at 11:11 can be so powerful. It steadies the beam, refocuses your energy, and sends a message into the currents of creation. This is my intention. You might be wondering, how specific should my intention be? Can I simply say, "I want joy," or must I map out every detail? The beauty of intention is its balance between clarity and openness. You want enough clarity to give your mind a target, but enough calmness to allow the universe to surprise you. If you set too rigid a plan, you may miss the detours that lead to unexpected blessings. If you stay too vague, your energy dissipates without direction. At 11:11, you might whisper, "May I experience more joy in my relationships," rather than "I will have lunch with Sarah on Tuesday at noon." You're charting the general course while inviting the universe's wisdom to fill in the particulars. Let me share an example I witnessed at a community gathering. A young man, fresh out of college, was searching for his purpose. He felt pressure to choose a career path but had no clear sense of what would ignite his passion. One afternoon, he found himself staring at 11:11 on the campus clock tower and decided to treat it as a moment of intention setting. He closed his eyes and softly said, "Show me the work that brings my gifts to life." Within days, he stumbled into a volunteer opportunity teaching art to underprivileged children. What began as a way to fill a resume bullet became a living expression of his creativity and compassion. He told me later that the work felt less like labor and like a calling that first stirred when he aligned his thought with intention at 11:11. This practice isn't limited to major life decisions. It can infuse every corner of your day with purpose. Imagine you're about to give a presentation, and you catch 11:11 on the meeting room clock. You pause, breathe in, and think, "May my words inspire understanding," Or perhaps you're overwhelmed by bills and see 11 on 11 or bank statements timestamp. You place your hand over your heart and affirm, "May abundance flow to meet my needs." In each small moment, you're planting seeds of transformation, watering them with the power of deliberate intention. Over time, these tiny acts of aligning thought with intention become a muscle you can flex at any hour, not only at 11:11. You discover that the clarity you cultivate in those intentional pauses permeates your waking hours. You respond to challenges with a grounded sense of purpose. You navigate decisions with a heart attuned to higher guidance. You become less reactive to circumstances and more creative in your solutions. The world around you begins to shift. Not because circumstances magically change overnight, but because you've changed, because you are now operating from intention rather than impulse. There's also a ripple effect when you share this practice with others. Picture a family at breakfast, each person noticing 11 on their devices and pausing together for a shared moment of intention. The father might silently affirm patience and kindness. The mother might set an intention for creativity in her day. The children might wish for courage on the playground. That unified pause knits hearts together, aligning a collective frequency of love and purpose within the home. And when unity and intention converge, they amplify one another, creating an atmosphere where miracles are more likely to manifest. It's important to remember that intention without action is incomplete. When you plant a seed in your garden, you must tend it, you water it, remove weeds, and ensure it receives sunlight. Likewise, after you set your intention at 11:11, remain attentive to the prompts and nudges that follow. If an opportunity appears that aligns with your intention, embrace it. If a creative eye surfaces, write it down. If a gentle pull guides you to reach out to someone, pick up the phone. These small steps are the tending that allows your intention to bloom into tangible outcomes. I want to encourage you to start today. If you're uncertain about your deepest desire, simply begin with a general intent: "Where I live in alignment with my highest good." See how that feels at 11:11. Notice the subtle shifts in your mood, your openness to possibility, your willingness to act on intuition. Journal about what arises and observe the synchronicities that follow. Over the next weeks, refine your practice. Perhaps your intention becomes more specific: a creative project, a healing, a new relationship. Watch as the simple act of aligning thought with intention at 11:11 becomes a catalyst for change. And when doubts surface, when the habit of negativity or fear tempts you, remember that intention is a choice you can make again and again. If you miss the moment at 11:11, you can pause at 2:22 or 3:33. The principle remains: with every conscious breath, you realign your inner compass with the magnetic pull of your soul's purpose. You become a co-creator of your reality, wielding the power of intention to shape your destiny. So as you go forth, may you greet each 11:11 with the awareness that it is your signpost, your call to intention. May your thoughts be seeds of possibility, and may your intentions shine like lighthouses in the sea of creation. And may you follow through with inspired action, knowing that each deliberate step brings the blossom of your dreams ever closer. May you answer the call with an open heart. Have you ever wondered why, once you notice something, you suddenly see it everywhere? It might have been that new car you were considering. Once the idea took root in your mind, you began spotting it on every street corner. Or perhaps you learned a new word and then heard it multiple times in conversation the very same day. This isn't magic or mere coincidence. It's a fundamental function of the mind called the reticular activating system, or RAS, and it plays an extraordinary role in how we perceive the world. The RAS is a network of neurons in your brainstem that acts like a gatekeeper for the flood of sensory information coming in through your eyes, ears, and other senses. Every second, your brain is bombarded with far more data than it can process consciously. So the RAS filters that information, deciding what to bring into your conscious awareness and what to let pass by unnoticed. In effect, it asks, what matters most to you right now? And then it makes sure you see more of that. When you give importance to the number 11:11, when you notice it, think about it, perhaps even speak about it, you're instructing your RAS to highlight it in your field of vision. Suddenly, what was once a random display on a clock becomes a beacon, catching your eye at every moment it appears. And yet, beneath this simple mechanism lies a profound intersection of science and spirituality, a reminder that our thoughts shape our experience of reality. Imagine walking through a crowded market. If you're hungry for apples, your eyes will naturally gravitate toward the fruit stands. You might not even notice the baker's pastries or the weaver's carpets until you turn your attention to them. The same principle applies to patterns and symbols. By giving 1111 significance, you prime your mind to scan for that pattern, and it begins to pop up everywhere from your phone screen to the dashboard of your car, from receipts to digital clocks at the store. But here's the beautiful twist. The RAS does more than just filter, it amplifies. It boosts the importance of what you focus on, making it more salient in your daily life. So when you treat 1111 as a meaningful sign, you're not only spotting it more often, you're also heightening your awareness of the moment itself. You start to notice the subtle shifts in your body when the numbers align, the quiet stirrings in your heart, the gentle nudges of intuition. And in doing so, you step into a richer experience of presence. This scientific mechanism doesn't negate the spiritual significance of 1111, enriches it. It shows us that our minds and bodies are designed to co-create our experience. When you choose to see 1111 as an invitation, you harness the power of your RAS to bring you more opportunities to pause, reflect, and align with your higher purpose. It's a beautiful partnership between neuroscience and the whisperings of the divine. Consider a person who once dismissed 1111 as insignificant. They might have glanced at the clock, smiled, and moved on unconcerned. But when they learn about the RAS and consciously decide to treat 1111 as a spiritual cue, something shifts. Their brain's gatekeeper takes note of that decision, and they begin to notice the pattern with fresh interest. And every time it appears, they have a chance to pause, center themselves, and ask, what am I being called to notice right now? It's important to recognize that the RAS works both ways. If you're stuck in negative thoughts, worrying about what might go wrong, replaying past mistakes, your RAS will highlight evidence that reinforces those fears. You'll notice every traffic jam, every missed deadline, every critical comment. Your mind becomes a proving ground for your negative expectations. But when you intentionally refocus your attention's lines like signs like Kuhlman, you retrain your RAS to seek out what uplifts and inspires you. This retraining doesn't happen overnight. Just as muscles stronger through repeated exercise, your mind's focus becomes more powerful through regular practice. That's why the ritual of pausing at 1111 matters so deeply. Each time you pause, you reinforce the neural pathways, weighs the number with presence, with intention, with spiritual attunement. Over time, your brain becomes sensitized to those moments of alignment, and you find yourself slipping more effortlessly into of mindful awareness, even outside of the 1111 moments. There's a woman I once met who struggled with anxiety. Her mind was often a whirlwind of worries about her health, her family, her future. She began a simple practice. Whenever she saw 1111, she would take 3 slow, intentional breaths and say to herself, I am safe. I am guided. At first it felt awkward, her mind raced, her heart pounded, but she persisted. After weeks of this practice, she noticed that even when 11 didn't appear, she was more capable of catching herself in anxious thought patterns and redirecting her focus. Her RAS had been retrained, not just to notice the clock's digits, but to notice the cues of her own inner state and guide her back to calm. This is the transformational gift of understanding the science behind attention. It empowers you to take an active role in shaping your perception and experience. You become less of a passive observer of your life and more of a conscious creator. When 1111 appears, it becomes a tool, a scientific you can pull to shift your mental and emotional gears. And because the RAS amplifies what you focus on, you don't have to limit yourself to just noticing 1111. You can apply this principle to any thought or intention that serves your highest good. If you focus on compassion, you'll begin to see opportunities to be kind. If you focus on gratitude, you'll notice reasons to give thanks. The door swings both ways. Whatever you train your RAS to highlight will blossom in your lived experience. Yet, while the science offers clarity, the mystery remains. There is something ineffable in those moments when you pause at 11 and feel that whisper of the sacred. You may feel a wave of peace, a rush of insight, or a gentle nudge toward a decision you've been avoiding. Science can explain how we come to notice these moments, but it cannot quantify the depth of meaning they carry. That space, the space between neuroscience and spirit, is where miracles unfold. So the next time you find 1111 blinking at you in the midst of your day, remember the gift you've been given. Remember that your reticular activating system has been primed to bring you that moment. Use it wisely. Pause, breathe, and tune into the deeper question: what am I being called to see, to know, to become? And trust that in that simple act of noticing, you are stepping into a partnership with the universe, a dance of science and spirit that can transform your everyday life into an unfolding miracle. May you answer the call with an open heart. When you pause at 11:11 and breathe in the possibility of that moment, you're doing more than simply observing. You're stepping onto a stage of co-creation. Each synchronicity, each flicker of those 4 digits, carries with it an invitation, not merely to notice, but to act in harmony with the current of your soul's purpose. It's one thing to recognize the signs, to feel the subtle nudge of intuition or the gentle echo of divine timing. But the real alchemy happens when you allow that insight to move you, to propel you into inspired action that ripples outward into your life and the lives of others. I recall a young mother who kept seeing 11 on her oven clock as she prepared breakfast for her children. Initially, she thought it quaint, a charming little quirk of the device. Yet each appearance stirred something in her, a longing for more meaning, more depth beyond the daily chores. One morning, after greeting 11:11 with her usual smile, she placed her hand over her heart and asked, "What's the next right step for me?" The answer came not in a thunderclap, but in a quiet whisper: "Teach your gift." Over the following weeks, she began sharing quick cooking tips and life hacks with neighbors and friends, first in casual gatherings, then online. Before long, she was hosting workshops that nourished not only bodies but spirits, and she discovered that her simple kitchen had become an altar of service. That, dear friends, is the magic of taking inspired action. It's not about grand gestures or about perfect listening. It's about leave and leaning, and leaning into what stirs your heart. You might feel drawn to send a message to someone you've been meaning to thank, to pick up a paintbrush you've neglected, to volunteer for a cause that keeps surfacing in your mind. Each small step, taken in faith, creates momentum. It transforms a fleeting spiritual pause into a living current of change. Imagine you're an artist staring at a blank canvas when the clock flips to 11:11. You feel a sudden swell of courage, a beckoning to express something true within you. You pick up your brush and begin, not waiting for inspiration to strike, but trusting that the act of beginning will open the floodgates. Or perhaps you're a writer who, upon seeing 11:11, decides to pen a poem of gratitude, releasing words that heal your own heart and the hearts of others who read them. In each case, the power isn't in the clock, but in your willingness to answer its call. Sometimes taking action means stepping out of your comfort zone. It might mean speaking up when you would normally stay silent, applying for a role you doubt you'll get, or initiating a conversation you've been avoiding. The universe often whispers its invitations through 11:11, but it rarely hands you a map. That's where trust comes in, the trust that your inner guidance, fanned by the echo of those digits, will lead you exactly where you need to go. You may stumble, you may pivot, you may even return to the drawing board. But every step you take in alignment with that whisper deepens your faith in the unfolding journey. I once met a young entrepreneur who had been wrestling with self-doubt. His business was growing steadily, yet he feared reaching out into new markets, believing he lacked the know-how or the resources. Each day he noticed 11:11 on his dashboard, and each day he felt the same stir of invitation. Finally, he resolved to act, to send a proposal to a potential partner he viewed as out of his league. Within a week, the partner responded, not only with interest but with an offer to mentor him. That single act of courage, born in the pause of 11:11, unlocked a door that had firmly closed. Action is the bridge between vision and reality. You can imagine your dreams with vivid detail. You can feel the exhilaration of possibility pulsing in your veins, but until you cross the bridge, those dreams remain on the horizon. Every time you notice 11:11, you stand at the foot of that bridge. Will you linger in the admiring of its beauty, or will you take the first step across? Remember, the smallest step is still enough to set the journey in motion. It could be as simple as jotting down an intention, making a phone call, or researching the next logical move. The universe honors motion. It responds to the energy of forward momentum. Consider the ripple effect of your action. When you act, you change not only your own path but the lives of those around you. The young mother who taught cooking in her neighborhood didn't just feed bodies, she built community. The entrepreneur didn't merely expand his market, he modeled courage for others in his field. Your ripple might seem inconsequential at first, a brief smile to a stranger, a shared word of encouragement, a seed of an idea you plant with a friend. Yet each act of inspired movement radiates outward, landing in lives you may never even know. And don't be discouraged if the path you embark upon twists in unexpected ways. The river doesn't flow in a straight line, it curves, it cascades over rocks, it finds new channels. Your inspired action will do the same. You might discover that the workshop you launched leads you into mentoring, or that the poem you wrote becomes the spark for a community anthology. Be open to the detours, for they often carry hidden blessings. The universe delights in surprising us when we show up with an open heart and a willing spirit. At the core of taking inspired action is a partnership of trust. You trust the whisper you receive at 11:11, and you trust yourself enough to move on its prompting. You trust that even if the step seems small, it matters. You trust that the universe is working with you, not against you, aligning people, resources, and opportunities in ways you may not immediately see. This trust becomes a muscle, strengthening with each act of faith, until you find yourself living from a place of confident expectancy rather than hesitant doubt. So, how do you make this practice your own? Start by noticing the next 11:11 you encounter. Don't scroll past. Let your breath deepen and your heart open. Ask the silent question, what inspired action is mine to take? Listen for the first impulse that stirs a thought, a memory, a feeling of excitement or ease. Then, before the moment slips away, commit to a tangible next step. Write it down. Say it out loud. And then follow through, even if it feels imperfect. Each time you honor that invitation, you affirm your role as co-creator in the grand unfolding of life. In this way, 11:11 becomes more than a curious pattern. It becomes a living tool, a compass guiding you toward the expression of your highest gifts. It reminds you that the universe is not a distant clockmaker ticking off the seconds of your life, but a loving partner, inviting you into dance with every beat of the cosmic drum. When you take that dance step, you transform mere signs into sacred action. May you answer the call with an open heart.